and gentlemen, welcome to the Tradesman Experience. This is the podcast built by tradesmen for tradesmen. My name is Josh, and in the virtual studios, of course, Mr. Nate Newton. Nate, how are you, sir?
We're so far apart. I can't feel your warmth anymore.
So far apart. About 1,800 miles apart.
Oh, just not quite far enough, you know?
Now you sound like the rest of my family.
Yeah, right. It's weird because you moved closer to them.
Oh, here we go. There's a river there. There's a river there.
Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, we're fucking rocking and rolling around here. It's busier than shit. And football just started back up against us again this morning. So that's nice little time suck on the day. But at least we do it in the morning. We start at 7:30.
Just morning practice right now?
Yeah, they don't do 2 days anymore.
Oh, that's
They
right.
stopped doing that. So, but I mean, I don't mind it. I don't want to go stand out there in the fucking 4:00 in the afternoon when it's 102 degrees out there, you know. But yeah, no, it's nice. Like getting up and just dealing with it. You know, I get in here at about 6 in, deal with a couple emails, and then get out on the field by 7:30, and then you know I'm done by 9:30. So it's about the time my phone starts ringing anyway. So not a bad system.
No, I've officially moved in.
Atta boy.
Got the office / studio, casting couch, casting chair, big screen TV, ring lights, the whole.
Yeah.
I even have a coffee maker and a microwave in here. So
do people walk by and look inside and just go, "That's a fuck shack if I've ever seen
yeah.
one."
So
Yeah.
when I was when we got the key early and we started moving in on a weekend, and when I started kind of touring the building, a lot of the offices have either a glass door or a small window that that looks into the building, and so you can kind of look into these offices, and so many of them are typical offices, meaning computer, bookshelves, 3-ring binders, small desk and a chair, and I understand the efficacy of it. I looked at all that, I'm like, I spend too much time in here. I don't want anything like that. So I do have a couch, I do have the leather chair, I do have the big screen, I do have, again, microwave, coffee pot, I've got my books, and I turned our podcast table into my desk.
Oh shit.
And
Okay.
yeah, so it gives me space to set up so I don't have to set up and tear down anymore. Everything's stationary, everything's on arms and booms, and
You just push it all out of the way.
yeah, so I'm sure when someone does walk by, they look in here and they're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Because it looks like a man cave. I'm not gonna lie. It
does.
looks like a badass man cave.
So did your last office, but it
Well,
actually was a cave.
It was a cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, being around people's different.
Yeah.
That's a new phenomenon.
Yeah. You're not in your little different by yourself for fucking 48 hours at a time anymore.
I'm like, what are these species walking
Right.
around?
Are you digging it though? Having the
I am. Yep,
Yeah.
I'm digging it. I have a smoking hot roommate, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
she's really going to appreciate you referring to as the roommate, I'm sure.
So that's actually our joke.
Okay.
Is what's up, roomie?
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of our inside joke. So it's dude, it's so different. Being as alone and isolated as I've been for the last couple years, and going into just fully immersed into a relationship, and having an awesome partner, and it's pretty great. I have to admit.
It's kind of nice when they start out long distance like that, you know, and then you get to work your way into it, and you're like ready to lean into it by the time you get there.
Yeah,
it's a good way to bounce back from the situations we were in.
Yeah, man. It's it's badass. So I'm enjoying it. Thanks to everybody that has actually sent me messages and compliments and asked how I'm doing and how the move is. So I've gotten a lot of interaction, a lot of people checking on me. So it's kind of cool.
Somebody's got to.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's accurate. So we often start a conversation out like this where I go, Nate had an idea and sent me a text message, and now we're gonna have a podcast out of it. And, you sent me a text, and it said, "I think we should do an episode on feelings." And I was like I called you because I was actually driving across country,
Mhm.
and I called you, and we had a 20 or 30-minute conversation, and I was like, "Fucking A, let's dive into this thing. Let's" as especially as men and as blue collar men, we are taught to suppress.
Mhm.
You're not supposed to have feelings. You're not supposed to
Well, except for
experience
anger.
pain. That's the only one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Caffeinated, nicotine-infused anger. That's it.
Yeah. Oh god, that hits so close to home too. That's
Right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it's one of those things that I was sitting the other day. Fuck, I can't even remember what I was doing, but I remember I was getting fucking pissed at something, and I was like, "It's not that thing that like that's causation, right? Or it's not causation. My emotions are they're a reaction to something. My feelings are a reaction to some sort of causation, and like it helped me walk myself back a little bit faster. And it's like, well, this is your fault, you fucking idiot. Like,
mhm,
and I don't want to. I don't ever want to get to the point again in life where I negated feelings. Uh, it's something that I've kind of learned to embrace, and it helps me navigate like why certain things are happening in life. And I never looked at it that way before. Like you said, it was just something to suppress. Like
mhm.
you're not allowed to do that. Like okay, and then like I said, they all turn into rage at some point. But um, realizing that my emotions are my reaction to the world, and that I need to be intelligent about that as I start to make decisions based off of those emotions, right? Whether that's happiness, whether that's sadness, whether that's rage, I have to be mindful of those feelings as I start to navigate life. And there's probably a bunch of people that have been through therapy that are like, "No shit, you fucking idiot." And I've never, I went through therapy when I was like 13 years old, but other than that, I've tried to do this all on my own and feel like I'm starting to get a grasp of it, you know? And they kind of get away from me sometimes. I'll get a little caught up in
Mhm,
my feelings and like you should have them. You should feel them, but you shouldn't be making important decisions based
mhm.
upon, you know?
The one of the telltale signs or one of the identifiers of understanding the emotional aspect, and something I know you've heard me say a million times in training, is emotional discipline is not emotional suppression.
Mhm.
And if people could really understand that, emotional discipline is not emotional suppression. It goes back to the word that you used multiple times, and that is reaction.
Mhm.
Emotional discipline and emotional maturity allows you to respond and not react.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you are reacting emotionally, it's a good identifier that you need to have some emotional awareness. You need to have some emotional discipline, and you need to have some emotional maturity. And most people just react. They just
Mhm.
react on their emotions. They don't respond. And
Mhm.
when you have that ability to respond, it gives you what you talked about. You had the ability to kind of walk yourself back and go, okay, what is going on? What is the causation?
Mhm.
Am I suffering a symptom of a problem, or is it the actual problem? And
Right.
why am I emotionally reacting? And what I need to do, and how can I correctly respond?
Mhm.
And that's a lot to unpack right there, just in the maturity aspect. But recognizing the difference in responding and reacting, I think, is important.
Yeah, no, that's huge, and that's like, I've listened to quite a bit of Peterson, and that's it's the same. It toes in line with that, The either control your emotions or they're gonna control you, and, like, you can still feel the feelings and,
Mhm,
understand that whatever it is. And I like your point of, is this a symptom of a problem or a problem? Because 9 times out of 10, it's a symptom of some other dumb shit you've been doing that you're either avoiding or you're not. taking full charge of, and then therefore you're getting this overwhelming emotional reaction to a
Mhm.
situation, and you got to realize that you're fighting yourself, and that the more you come to terms with yourself and be like, okay, what's actually causing the money to not be in the fucking bank account?
Mhm.
What's causing the guys to not fucking do things the way we ask them to do them? And it's probably my delivery. It's probably my leadership. It's probably my lack of financial understanding. So instead of just being mad at the fact that the money's not in there, I get to be methodical about it and go, okay, how do we get the money in there?
Mhm.
You know, and I think a lot of us we avoid situations because we're avoiding emotions. And one thing that I will discredit myself with a lot for my entire life is that I have lied to a lot of people to avoid hurting their feelings. And the more I get into touch with my feelings, the more I realize how fucked up that is,
Mhm.
because it doesn't change the scenario, it doesn't change the situation. It just changes my incremental moment that I have to deal with it. And it's just going to make it worse down the line. 'Cause you're not
Mhm.
saving anybody by not being honest with them. You know, and it's dumb little white lies, you know, it's not like fucking, "Oh, I murdered your cat and didn't tell you about it,"
Mhm.
kind of a thing, you know? It's stupid little shit that I can't even come up with the
It is, it's avoidance of disagreement,
mhm,
right? It's easier to agree, to be agreeable
mhm,
and avoid the emotion connected to disagreeing or potentially upsetting someone. If we I think if we really peel back the layers and we look at why we were taught and why we were indoctrinated in the aspect of not expressing emotion, not accepting your emotion, not talking about your feelings, is because it's perceived as being vulnerable. And again, you've been in enough training. We talk about vulnerability in
mhm.
emotional maturity training. And I always ask the question, what do you think of when you hear vulnerability? And
Weakness.
every single time,
Yeah,
pussy,
yeah,
weakness, right? Because
mhm,
that's how we've been trained.
mhm,
So we look at vulnerability as a weakness. So when you attack vulnerability as a weakness, the lack of emotional discipline and the lack of emotional maturity is a symptom.
mhm,
The lack of emotional discipline is a symptom because we've just been taught that you're not allowed to be vulnerable.
mhm. I think, you know, I mean, I'll just throw it out there. I mean, it was my mom. She was kind of an emotional terrorist and would weaponize emotions against us as kids. And like, you know, at no fault to her, dude. She was just a kid trying to raise kids, you know. And it's like I think we know and understand a lot more about psychology and how easy it is to fuck kids up nowadays. But when your emotions get weaponized against you, it makes you cling to them really fucking hard. Like you're not letting anybody in. Like my mother, who's supposed to love me the most out of anybody, would weaponize them against me, and I'm like, you know, that was I don't think it was until I was like completely broken by my divorce that I really started to fucking pay attention to it and realize I have
Mhm,
to let people in. I have to be a part of something bigger than myself, and that takes me being vulnerable with people. And it's helped out my leadership. It's helped out my personal relationship. You know, Kat's she's always fucking blown away. She's like, I can't believe we have the conversations that we have. It's like, yeah, like because we need to get it out, otherwise it'll turn
mhm.
into rage and discontent. So if I get a problem, we're gonna fucking sort it out. If you get a problem, we're gonna sort it out. Like,
Mhm.
and we're gonna do that intelligently. And you know, I've never been one to approach things this way, dude. And it's like, you know how nice it is to not go to bed mad at each other.
Yeah,
You know,
I do.
like, yeah, that's fucking. I've never been afforded that in any of my other relationships. You know, and like it's because I was so guarded.
Mhm.
I had this fucking wall up of like, fuck no, you're not allowed in. And
Yep.
so getting over that hurdle was huge.
The that also, you know, proves the importance of having an emotionally mature partner, because you have to have that emotionally mature relationship and you have those conversations, and it's extremely healthy and necessary to have those. I'm going to give a simple example of vulnerability in a leadership aspect, because immediately, again, when people hear vulnerability, they assume weakness and emotion. But let's say that somebody on your team come up to you and said, "Hey, can we do this? Or do you know how to do this? Or what's the best way to do this?"
Mhm.
If you looked at him and said, "I don't know," that is being vulnerable.
Mhm.
And it's not a high emotion state, right?
Mhm.
It's not a moment of weakness, but it's a true act of vulnerability.
Mhm.
And if you understand that, and understand that vulnerability is multi-layered, but just the fact of you saying and accepting and announcing the fact that I don't know,
Mhm.
let's figure it out. What do you think we should do? How do you what are your ideas? That sense of vulnerability is necessary for mature leadership.
Oh, dude, I mean, and who out there right now running a business doesn't come across something at least once a day that they don't know how to do?
I'm lucky to come across something one a day that I do know how to do.
Right.
That's
Yeah, but and that's like Matt's picked up this really cool tactic for that, when the guys will call and they'll be like, "Hey, this is going on. I don't know what to do." And Matt's like, "If I come up there, let's say they're in Reno, which is an hour drive for us. If I come up there, I'm just going to come up there and figure it out. Are you telling me you can't do that?" And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, I'll figure it out."
Mhm,
And like it's such a good twist on the whole thing of, instead of having an hour of raged out drive to get up there to be pissed and yell and fucking, that's not what Matt does, but
mhm.
if that's how you're operating your outfit, give people a little grace to try and figure some shit out, you know? Because we're all learning here every fucking day as this goes on,
Mhm.
None of us knows completely what we're fucking doing.
Yeah. Well, just the sense of vulnerability required to empower people.
Yeah. To relinquish the fucking
Mhm,
control is, yeah, that is it, that you're right. That puts you in a very vulnerable position. And that's why leadership is so important. You gotta have the right fucking people on your teams, and
yeah.
because I and the thing is, like, there are people that they're the wrong people to be vulnerable with.
Mhm,
There are people that are either going to weaponize it against you, take it against you. They'll fucking call you out on something 6 months down the road from it, or you try to bring up an issue with somebody and they're like, well, you do this, this, and this. And it's like,
mhm.
okay, well, that's not what we were talking about. So,
Well, what happens there is people, one bad experience becomes their emotional identity.
yeah.
So, it's like having a bad girlfriend and then treating a good girlfriend bad because you had one bad girlfriend,
Yep. Yep.
and or treating all of your subcontractors like shit because you had one bad subcontractor or one bad
Mhm.
employee, so nobody else can be trusted.
Right.
Y And you have to filter that. That has to be situational, otherwise, you're limiting your growth and opportunity, you're limiting your emotional maturity because you had 1 or 2 bad experiences. Like, it's life, motherfucker. You're
Right.
gonna have bad experiences. Like, what are you
Yeah.
trying to mitigate? The only way
Hmm.
that you're not gonna have critics, you're not gonna have haters, you're not gonna have bad experiences, you're not gonna have bad relationships, you're not gonna have bad people in your lives is if you fucking do nothing.
Hmm.
That is the only way to avoid the negative, is to do
Right.
nothing.
Well, and there seems to be a lot of motherfuckers trying to do nothing. So,
Well, that there are some
yeah.
of them out there.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
it's one of those things that, like, just bringing up the idea of emotion, because I know we've talked about emotional maturity, and like I feel like in the last couple months, just bought a house. We got, great stuff going on with the business, great leadership stuff. Like, I found myself having a hard time with gratitude. It's like, okay, well, now I've achieved all this stuff that I'm looking for. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm like, okay, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I'm like, can I just sit here for a fucking day and just like enjoy what we've fucking done? And that made me think it's because I get caught up in my feelings of my panic state of, there's always got to be more, always got to do more. Like, I can't be vulnerable enough to let somebody else take over a
Mhm.
certain part of the business so I can fucking be done after 8 hours a day,
Yep.
you know?
Let's talk about celebrating victories for a second. I had this exact conversation today with a client, and it's actually a mutual friend of ours. But I had this conversation today, and I said, "Are you celebrating any of the victories, or are you only focusing on the loss?" And I said, I'm going to give you an exaggerated example of celebrating the victories here. I said, let's think of a basketball game. What happens every single time a point is scored? Everybody acts like they just won the game.
Mhm.
The coaches, the players, the fans, the owners, all of their fans at home. When a point is scored, everybody celebrates like they just won the game. Now, I said, let's say that they played the game like most people run a business, and no one cheered until the game was over and they read the scoreboard. And only then the winning team applauded.
Yeah, that'd be boring. Nobody would wanna see that.
That no one would want to go. No
Mhm,
team would want to play. There would be no fans.
mhm,
I said, now I know that's an extreme example because we're not going to celebrate every point made. But the
mhm.
I but I use that example because you have to understand the importance of celebrating the points.
Mhm. And I mean, just those small celebrations change your mental state so much. You know, when you can have some gratitude for some shit going on, it makes a lot of that dumb little nuance shit not seem like such a big deal. It's like, okay, yeah, well, some little thing over here got fucked up, but we had this little win over here, you know, and it kind of starts to even itself
Mhm.
out.
Oh, you mean
And
the other team scored a goal?
mhm.
Right?
No,
I
oh
mean, like
no, yeah, no way, yeah,
yeah,
right.
client gets a vote, right?
Hmm.
You know?
But
Um,
we got to come out at the end of it, you know, wherever the end of it is for you, whether that's the end of a quarter or selling the business, you know, it's good to have those bigger goals in mind, but you gotta. And I think it takes a level of an emotional maturity to celebrate and
mhm.
not party, but celebrate. Like
Celebrate.
take pride in what you did.
And intentionality, right? That maturity comes with intentionality.
Hmm.
And if you're not keeping score, then how do you know when you're winning and losing anyway? If you're not keeping score, you're only, again, responding versus reacting, you're only reacting to the negative.
Right, right.
That's it. Because you're not keeping score, you're not celebrating with your team, you're not sharing the scoreboard, you're not sharing the wins, you're not learning from the losses.
Hmm.
And and that's when culturally you have a lot of negative emotion, right?
Hmm.
You have the bad apples in the company, you have the complaining, you have the complacency, you have the blame and complain because that's what you're breeding. You're literally breeding negative emotion.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's so fucked up that the negative emotions are so much more contagious than the positive ones. Like
So contagious.
there's like certain people, you know, like they can walk into a room and light the fucking thing up, no matter how it's going. But and it's like it's always this very special person, you know, like
Mhm.
somebody that just they got it, you know. But you can have one Debbie Downer come in and have the same fucking effect by doing nothing, you know. And we latch onto that negative side of shit so much. Then once you're conscious of that too, and once you fucking notice that it's happening, and then you start noticing who those people are, and you can navigate your way far away from those people. This dude, like, I can't fucking stand woe is me negative fucking bullshit anymore, dude.
No.
Like, I feel it start to seep into my skin, and it's just like it feels dirty, and it's like,
Mhm.
come on, like, let's go. Like, life ain't that fucking bad, you know. You're a fucking American with a job. You're fucking crushing it on a global scale, motherfucker. You know.
Mhm.
But I'm not Jeff Bezos. Okay, but yeah, that's one of those things that I try to be a lot more mindful of now, especially when it comes to working relationships. If we got a client that's like kind of they're always looking for the shit that's wrong with everything. It's like, hey, like our guys just spent, and our guys are fucking phenomenal fabricators and you know steel erectors and all that stuff. And then you got one contractor that's just bitching about fucking everything. And it's like, hey, I don't think we need to work together anymore.
Mhm.
Like, it's not worth my mental health. It's not worth their guy's mental health. And you're just kind of a cunt. So how about you fuck off? Like, that sounds like a better idea to me. I don't care how much money's involved.
No, because at some point, your emotional sanity outweighs the profit.
Hmm. Yeah. There's some shit that just ain't worth the fucking money, man.
That's right.
And I mean, we all know those motherfuckers. We've met them,
Mhm.
and depending upon how much time you spend around them, you realize that that person will never be satisfied. They're constantly stuck in
Mhm.
this negative feeling.
Yeah. Something that you said about you and Kat was, "Hey, if there's something that we've gotta work out, like, we're gonna have a conversation about it, and something you need to work out, we're gonna have a conversation about it." And something I've had this realization or probably a revelation recently is is really understanding hard conversations, and I talk about hard conversations all the time.
Mhm.
And the only reason I say hard conversations is because everybody understands the aspect of like talking about things that are, and I'm using air quotes, that are difficult. The revelation that I had is there are no hard conversations. You're not having hard conversations. The question is, are you having the right conversations?
Mhm.
And I think hard conversation automatically gives us this anticipation of conflict. So we avoid hard conversations.
Mhm.
You've got to stop looking at it as hard conversations and just simply ask, are we having the right conversations?
Mhm. Yeah, because if you come in and you're just attacking, you're like, "Hey, this thing you do is really fucking stupid and I hate it." It's like, okay, well, all level of understanding just went out the fucking window right there, you know?
Mhm.
And like, how would you feel if somebody came at you like that? It's like, well, but I'm right here. Oh, are you? You're right.
Right.
Okay. Okay. There's that ego seeping in.
Well, I had somebody tell me one time a one sided conversation is not a conversation, it's an argument.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I've come to like, I used to be like the most fucking patient person on the planet. I would when it comes to people I love, whether that's, Matt, you, exes, all that stuff, I would let so much shit slide. Be like, "Ah, it's not that big of a deal. Not that
Mhm.
big of a deal." But I realized that all those little not that big of a deals really start to compound over time. Over the years, they fucking pile up and it's like, "Hey, what are we doing? Like, why am I always letting shit
Mhm.
slide?" You know? And so now it's like this little shit, and you bring it up in a fucking nice, pleasant manner of like, "Hey, like, I get it, you just walked in the door, but can you not throw your bra on the floor?
Mhm.
Hey, like, just can you throw that dish in the fucking dishwasher?" And it can be a quick little correction like that, as to where before I would just let it slide, take care of it myself, and then one day I just fucking blow up.
Mhm.
So I'm like, "What? Like, why aren't you understanding this?" Well, because I never fucking said anything. That's why they're not understanding, and that's
And
a big hurdle to get over.
it is. And the whole time that you're doing that, you are spending emotional equity of that relationship.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, emotional equity of the relationship. I like that concept. That it's not even just about your equity with your spouse or your spouse's equity with you, but the relationship itself only
Mhm.
has so much equity. Well, that's good.
Katie and I work we really focus on having the right conversations, and so much to where we've created opportunity for us to have right conversations.
Mhm,
So where it's again where we're responding, not reacting.
mhm,
And when you create that opportunity to have the right conversations, it's so fucking easy,
mhm.
and it makes everything in the world right. Like,
Right. Yeah,
it
yeah,
makes everything about your relationship right, it makes the conversations right, and it makes your ability to respond and move forward right.
yeah.
But just putting yourself in a constant state of reaction, spending that
Mhm,
emotional equity of the relationship because you're allowing the little things to piss you off, It's like, why are we doing that? Because the thing is, you're going to run out of equity.
Mhm. Well, and I think, thinking about that concept too of the equity in the, relationship, it's like, relationships are something that have to be constantly worked on. It requires effort from both sides. So it's like you both are dumping equity into this thing, and if you guys are taking it out, it's just gonna fucking fall apart.
Mhm.
Like, it'll go under, and, I think you're right, having the right conversations and having it, like, there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than sitting there and motherfucking your spouse.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
I've had it done to me a bunch. I've done it a couple times, but, like, dude, that's fucking it's for one, it's trashy. For two, it's dumb. For three, it's ineffective. Like, if you and your old lady are fucking motherfucking each other more, once a week or something, maybe try turning that
Mhm.
into a conversation instead of a fucking knockdown drag out.
Katie and I were in a crowd of people. I'll minimize all of the details, but we were in a crowd of people. All of the people there were all spouses. They were all partners, at least. And her and I are kind of course, I'm smoking a cigar, and her and I are kind of sitting there just observing. And she leans over and she goes, "I'm really glad we like each other." You know? And it's like, how true,
Right.
And you
Right.
see all of these people, they still fucking like each other.
They
Some of
fucking
this
they cohabitate.
Oh, man. I hate some of the things I hate is, a relationship is 50-50.
No, it's not.
I I hate the happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
I
Nope.
hate the happy spouse, happy house.
Mhm.
It's 100-100.
Mhm.
It's not 50-50. It's not 60-40. It's a 100-100.
Yeah, no, well, if you were to come in here and give me 50% every day, get the fuck out. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
why? And if I don't expect that from my teammates, why would I expect that from my spouse?
Right.
You know, like you said, it's 100 or 100. Or, we've talked about the relationship equity too. That, let's say you got 80% in the tank that day and she's got 20. Well, fucking, you're making up whatever you can, right? You
Mhm.
guys are both putting 100 in.
Yep. But that's, and not to turn this into a relationship advice conversation, you just have to have alignment, and you have to have the right conversations.
Mhm.
You have to understand the reactions, and this is leading me into one of the other parts is you have to understand why and what people's toxic traits are.
Mhm.
And I think knowing what your toxic trait are is an extreme level of emotional awareness and emotional maturity. I will tell everybody I know exactly what my toxic trait is. My toxic trait is to completely and utterly emotionally remove you from my life,
Mhm.
and with no remorse. Like that, that's the toxic part of it is like I can fucking turn you off
Mhm.
just like that, and you're dead to me.
Mhm.
Literally, like, you're fucking dead to me. I don't care what happens to you. I don't give a shit about what you're thinking. Like that's my toxic trait,
Mhm.
and knowing that I have to be careful of how that affects my decisions.
Mhm. Yeah,
I have
like, at what level of fuck up does that get engaged, And I
Mhm,
think I don't I think that in certain situations, yeah, that's probably a toxic trait, but I think there's also some people that do just need to be nixed out of your fucking life. They're not adding to it, or at least, you know,
mhm,
if you have a toxic individual in your life, you should be able to do that. And with no remorse. And
mhm,
I think this is one of those things that with the emotional maturity, that the more that I've come to realize about myself is that I never had boundaries with people because I thought my emotions were unwarranted.
mhm,
And so I was like, I don't fucking like that. And so, but it wasn't legit because it was me the one feeling it. So learning how to understand my emotions helps me set boundaries. I mean, you set a hard boundary with what you just said, but it's still a fucking boundary.
mhm. Me learning how to be aware and be in control of that trait is actually learning what boundaries I do need to set with people,
Mhm,
and not just full stop,
get fucked.
get fucked kind of thing.
Mhm,
The other thing that I've discovered is that toxic traits are just a trauma response.
mhm,
I th I that's something I believe, not a fucking psychiatrist, but I believe that our toxic traits are really just trauma responses. And if you look at toxic traits of people, especially in the emotional aspect, you look at, like, what I'm talking about, like, just complete disconnect. Avoidance is a toxic trait. That's a trauma response,
mhm,
right? Undisciplined anger is a fucking trauma response.
mhm,
You know, these leaders and these business owners and these husbands, wives, fathers, mothers that just lose their fucking mind because they don't get their way. It's a trauma response. It is a toxic trait, but it's a
mhm.
fucking trauma response, and it's an amplification of immaturity.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Don't use it as a fucking crutch.
Mhm,
Like, and that's one of those emotional downfalls that we've seen over the years is that people are like, "Oh, well, this is because of my trauma." And it's like, well, if you understand it's there, what are you doing to correct it? Like, you should see the triggers. You should understand when you're starting to feel a certain way and you're starting to do a certain thing, but instead you use it as a crutch for your shitty fucking
mhm,
behavior. Like, fuck that. And that's why I like to be very careful with the word trauma because trauma, it does exist. It does.
mhm,
And I understand that, but it's become such a fucking cop out that it's like, okay, you can have trauma, but fucking do something about it.
mhm,
Okay, if you got to go to fucking therapy, whatever the fuck it takes, go confront your
mhm.
shitty mom. I don't know, but take care of it. Don't use it to be fucking a shithead to everybody else.
Um, it will be a justification tool your whole life
Mhm,
if you don't address it, and the people that suffer are the people that you try to impose, the lives that you try to, insert yourself into. They're the ones that suffer from it because we are such a conflict avoiding nature,
mhm,
as a society. We just tolerate it, and at some point, again, that tolerance is it's going to go away.
mhm,
And when you start, by the way, when you start setting boundaries, I don't know if I don't have kids, but the comic scene of, you know, putting the screaming tantrum toddler in the corner, what do? They continue to scream and throw a tantrum.
mhm.
When you set boundaries with people, expect it.
Yep.
They're going to continue to behave the way that they're behaving, and the reason that you set boundaries, because that's their justification for their behavior. And
Mhm,
they're going to even turn up the volume a little bit. So just expect that when you start setting boundaries with people, which I believe is extremely healthy,
mhm.
um, there's going to be some noise, and how you choose to respond or react to that is really going to be kind of a testimonial to your ability to set boundaries with people.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still in the early stages of that, like, but I also don't really hang out with that many people, other than like going to barbecues and shit.
Mhm.
But like as far as like sitting down and having conversations with people about real life shit, like I don't I think I oddly enough, I think I hang out with you more than I do anybody
Mhm.
else, other than
Right.
Cat, but
Yeah.
so it's that's I haven't I guess I'm very well aligned with the people that I choose to spend my time with. So I don't really have to set that many boundaries.
Mhm.
I feel like people have to set more boundaries with me than I do with them just because I'm so fucking over the top half the time. But, I'm trying to learn that too.
I get it, and that's part of those things, like, people immediately think of aggression and assertiveness as a negative emotion,
Mhm.
and that's not the case at all. Like, if I'm being aggressive, negatively aggressive towards someone, but aggression is kinda like the vehicle of the emotion. It's like if I'm
Mhm.
excited or I'm focused or I'm disciplined or I want something done, I'm aggressively going to go after that,
Yeah.
and most people don't like that.
Or even just being direct,
Mhm.
which I'm like, I'm going to fucking sugarcoat it for you. Like, hey, what the fuck? What are we doing? you know, and I've noticed that there's this connotation that if you're direct, you're a dick, and it's like I would much rather deal with direct people. I don't
Mhm.
want all the fluff. I don't want all the bullshit. Let's get the information across and move the fuck on.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, to be unclear is to be unkind,
Hmm.
and doesn't mean that doesn't give you permission to attack people. But again, you've got to learn how to verbally communicate in a way that is emotionally mature.
Hmm. And
Eh,
that's very difficult for a lot of people.
I still have my flare-ups, you
Yeah.
know? I said, I still have, my moments,
Hmm.
and, I'm not gonna deny that. I know that, I'll get some dark energy pretty quick, and I'm just like, thinking
Yeah.
about things
Murder.
that yeah, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I need to disconnect for a minute,
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
thing. Um, one of the things that I wanted to bring up in this conversation as well, and this is an observation. Okay, I have no case studies for this. This is an observation of all of the years that I've been studying people and leadership and all the shit we talk about and have for years. There is a common factor in hyper success of people, and I don't mean money success. I mean relationship success, physical success, business success, and money success, not just money success. I'm not talking about the monetary aspect of here, but there's this really interesting phenomenon that every single person has. They have out matured their parents.
Hmm. Yeah. I that. Yep. I can see that like across the fucking board.
Doesn't mean so now because I want that to sink in, but it doesn't mean that they've disconnected from their parents. It doesn't mean that they've removed their parents. It only means that they have outmatured their upbringing. They have outmatured their generational indoctrination, and they have stepped outside of that cycle, and they have outmatured their parents. And again, this is an observation, but if you look at everybody from Jordan Peterson to Ed Milet to Tony Robbins to pick whoever,
Hmm.
they all have the same story relating to the fact that they've outmatured their parents.
Hmm.
And
And I like
go
the
ahead.
way you put out matured their upbringing because I feel like that matters more.
Mhm.
Like to get to a point of maturity to get past whatever fucked up shit happened to you. But conquering that mountain, you know, your parents were a part of that, but I think out maturing your whole childhood is
Mhm.
I think that's huge. You know, and not just oh hey, I got older and I got a little more mature. You're out maturing the events that happened to
Mhm.
you when you were a kid.
Yep. And part of that is removing yourself from that system,
Hmm.
from the environment that where that indoctrination happened, where your childhood is, where that really emotional confinement was. And again, I'm not talking about malicious confinement. I'm just talking about the emotional maturity of people.
Hmm.
And I would tell you, had I not made that leap of out maturing my childhood and my upbringing and my parents, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Hmm.
This business wouldn't exist. The things that I'm doing wouldn't happen. Katie would not be in my life. So it's necessary for people to really understand where they are in relation to, again, their indoctrination, their upbringing, their parents, their family.
Hmm.
They just need to be aware of what they're doing, and you have to grow past that.
Yeah, yeah. You can't linger in that system and fucking get any better.
No,
Yeah, that's like chicks that get abused and go back. I can fix him. It's like no, no, but
right?
okay. You got
Yeah,
to get beyond it if you want to get better.
and and the guys in that situation as well, they're like, they keep abusing chicks, and it's a revolving relationship, and it's
Mhm.
like, why does this never get better? Because you never fucking grew up. That's why.
Yeah. You're a child.
Yeah, you're emotionally captive by something that's happened, and you never grew past that. You never evolved past that. So I was I was I was very careful when I was thinking about bringing that part up because somebody's going to be like, especially I think parents are going to look at it and go and take that as a negative, take that as an attack on them, and it's not an attack on them at all. It's
Mhm.
just the fucking reality that if you're going to grow to this level, there are a lot of things about your life that you're going to have to outgrow to get there.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're not one of those Ed Milet, Tony Robbins type parents, well, wouldn't you want your kids to be that type? To be able to mature past that and do
Mhm.
amazing things? Like, help them get there then, you know?
Yeah. I I still I I still give you credit for the best parenting advice I've ever heard.
What?
Um,
Don't? Yeah.
um, don't give your kids the things you didn't have. Teach them the things that you didn't know.
Mhm.
Neither one of us are parents, but looking at that from a leadership perspective of influencing other people and having the opportunity to shape and mold your generation, your younger selves,
Mhm.
like that's that's still the best advice that I have
And
heard.
that, that's from that's not just naivety, it's outsiders looking in. Like, you see, we all had the fucking rich friends growing up. The kids, most of them turned out to be fucking shitbags, but the ones that didn't, it's because their fucking parents made them earn every goddamn thing they had. They might have given them a leg up here and there, but
Mhm,
they had to they taught them what money was. They taught them what life was. They taught them about spirituality. They taught them all these things. It wasn't about the shit they gave them. That was just a little bit of icing on the cake.
yeah,
But then you got some of the fucking younger dirtbag kids that, their parents were just wise,
mhm,
you know, and they came out to be amazing humans. So I
mhm,
mean, the status doesn't really matter. It's about what you're teaching these little fuckers.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to give you credit for that because I think,
Well, thanks,
uh,
man.
I, eh, because I think again from a leadership perspective, like I think about that. When I had my first company and I was trying to develop myself into a leader, and it really was. I was just trying to be the leader that I had never had in my life, work
Mhm.
or home or anything. And it was like teaching them the things that I didn't know. It wasn't about giving my team the things I didn't have. It was about teaching them the things that I didn't know and having to learn that.
Well, but you know what? Matt and I did the exact opposite when it came to starting this business. What fucked up our first team? All we did was give and give and give.
Mhm.
We gave them all the things we didn't have when we were in the industry instead of teaching them the things that we didn't know at that age. So I mean, that's like two polar opposite ends of the
Right.
of the spectrum there, and we see how both of those turned out. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, ultimately, what we're saying is fuck your feelings,
don't be a little
right? No,
bitch.
yeah, screw vulnerability. Yeah. Just punch each other. It's easier. Yeah.
A lot of wrenches getting thrown.
Lot of wrenches. So I don't know, man. As always, when you have an idea of a topic, I appreciate the fact that you send it to me because it gives me a chance to put some bandwidth into it.
Well, and that's the cool part too, is because I'm usually half cocked by the time I fucking send it to you, and I'm like, Josh has got this.
That's the one I think we should talk about. I'm like on it,
Yeah, yeah.
on it. So,
Yeah.
well, man, good to see you.
Good to see your
Pet,
beautiful face and shiny bald
yeah,
head
yeah, dude. I learned that lighting is difficult for me to set up in a studio because of the shine. I
because it
can't
comes back. Yeah,
I can't get away from the shine. So
yeah.
it is what it is. But you can find Nate on Instagram at Nate Noon 87. I am on Instagram at The Tradesman Experience. Email is thetradesmanexperience at gmail.com. Website's thetradesmanexperience.com. And the YouTube channel is The Tradesman Experience. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Get out there, get shit done. Be proud to be a tradesman. See ya.